Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. It's Saturday morning, and I thought I would share with you in this little focus group that we're forming a sharing of the two things that I love most. The new, and to me it's new, slow stitching, and needlepoint. And some of you right away have said, "Ugh, this is not for me. I can't do needlepoint. It's too difficult, or I'm just not interested in it." But if you're interested in slow stitch, needlepoint has a lot of potential to give you an opportunity to embellish your work in a different way. So, slow stitch and needlepoint. Today we're going to focus on some simple things and some basic learnings that I want to share, and then we will slowly, lesson by lesson, increase our ability to work in both realms. Let's talk first about what you see before you. I have two skeins of DMC embroidery floss. This one, in case you're interested, is 315, and this one is 3345. And with numbers like that, this is so old that it's probably 40 years old. So it's a shade of green that I liked. I pulled it out of my stash just minutes ago. This is what is known as needlepoint paper. Yes, it is. It is paper. And I thought this would be a wonderful way for us to get acquainted, for you to get acquainted with the things that I think needlepoint that would enhance your personal work. This is also known as perforated paper, but I call it needlepoint paper because it is perforated, and it can be used as needlepoint paper. The operative word here is paper. As you can see, I've penciled in an outline of a flower right down on the paper. I believe that there is no reason why you couldn't use paint, watercolor, etc., because all you have to do is remember how to handle the fact that this is paper and it has holes in it, and you don't want it to become soggy. But we'll get to that some lessons in. We'll give it a try together. The word paper says to me that this has a lot of possibilities. This paper was in my stash. I don't know why on this planet I have these. I have a piece of gold and a piece of silver. I will never use them. Don't have any need to use them. Some of you might for holiday projects, particularly with Christmas projects coming up, might find this interesting. I'm going to use the back because I want to use it up on this project. This is Mill Hill perforated paper. It's 14 count. That means that there are 14 stitches or lines to an inch. 14 count means that you get 14 places to stitch to 1 inch. So perforated paper, 14 count, size 9 by 12, and there are 2 pieces. If you purchase them, there are 2 pieces to a pack. The place that I found these was Amazon, and they come in white, ecru, which is this color. This is the ecru, and antique brown, which is a few shades darker, more towards the old-fashioned needlepoint canvas color that we are all familiar with. So I'm going to leave this over here for the time being, so that you can copy the information in case at the end of this you decide, well, this might just be worth a try. These are a pair of magnets that I've added here so that I have a place to put my needle so that I don't lose it. Magnets are not necessary in any way, shape, or form, but it's something I'm used to doing, so I thought I would stick to it. Okay, I have a pair of scissors, and as you can see, I'm not going to lose those either. They're right there. I have these pretty babies I treated myself to, well, about 30 years ago, and they feel so good. They're such good quality that when you open and close them, you can just feel the way they're made is just wonderful. Regular scissors will certainly do the job equally. Older scissors will do the job. Tim Holtz scissors do the job. Anything that you can want to use to cut your threads. And let's talk for a moment about the basic of understanding the concept of needlepoint. If I were to have out a piece of needlepoint canvas, and I will get it from the table next to me here and show you. Okay, this is needlepoint canvas on a project that I didn't finish because I just didn't like doing it. I grew into loving journaling so much that I set my stitchery aside. This is needlepoint canvas. This is probably 18 threads to an inch. 18 threads to an inch, where this is 14 to an inch, so this is a little bit larger. Needlepoint canvas comes in many colors. As you can see, this aqua is just beautiful. This is the same thing that we're going to be working on here, but here we have a practice paper which is a lot less expensive than needlepoint canvas. Needlepoint canvas comes in white, ecru, antique brown, and many other colors of the rainbow. It is also, if you buy a full yard of it, the last time I heard it was $95 for a yard piece. I buy it, when I found a shop that carried it, I buy it by the inch. In other words, for this piece I might have bought a 12-inch piece, and therefore, of course, it costs less, but it is still not an inexpensive thing to use while one is still learning. I have some colors. I have some smaller pieces, some smaller bits available in my Etsy shop in red, and a piece of this color, and a few other colors. So let me put this aside and get back to what we're talking about today. Before I go on, I'm going to come back for a moment and talk about the fact that if you decide to use needlepoint canvas, you might want to either use a smaller piece, maybe a quarter of this, and you can hold it in your hands. You don't need the frame and the thumbtacks. I'm just used to doing it because I'm a needlepoint girl, and I have used frame and thumbtacks on everything because it keeps it from distorting. Let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about. This is a piece of ecru canvas that I set aside when I started to do mixed media, and then graduated into the love of my life, which is journaling, and then I discovered slow stitchery. This and these two pieces are pieces of my own watercolor that I decided to use as the center of the inspiration for this piece. This is a magnet. As you can see, I'm used to using magnets. I'm also used to putting this now. If this was not on a frame, not stapled, you can staple it, a lot of people do, or thumbtacked to a frame, it would warp. And that certainly saves money when you come to wanting to get it framed for your personal use in your home or for whatever it might be. This was the piece of watercolor of mine that I chose, and I chose this one because this background, as you can see, is a stencil. So I was practicing watercoloring through a stencil, and then I plopped a watercolor flower down on top of it. This is part of a leaf that comes out this side, another leaf, and a third one. And after this is finished, if this frame were to be finished, I would then glue that paper to the canvas. This is a piece of my original needlepoint. This was just a figment of my imagination that I worked on as I went along. Here's the centerpiece for the larger piece of watercolor, and the corners. This uses silk and beads, and here I put the background. I put in the background some of that needlepoint, some of that stenciling, and went over the stencils. Covered the stencils with DMC floss to bring more to make the background layered. So this was the first layer, and each layer built up. These leaves are, this is DMC, believe that's silk. This is DMC floss again, and these flowers are pieces of ribbon that I watercolor painted and put on for this corner. Well, I'm not going to talk about this for much longer, but you can see the potential for needlepoint and how I'm really going to think about how I can get back to doing this, because it's something that is making me feel kind of badly that I gave it up, set it aside. Let's say I didn't give it up. It's part of my blood, but I set it aside so that I could enjoy my mixed media and my journaling. Get this up out of harm's way. Now, the thing that you must know about needlepoint is it's really quite simple. And you say, after what I just saw, no, it isn't. Well, after what you just saw, that was the result. That watercolor and needlepoint matting for that picture was 40 years of needlepoint. 40 years of needlepoint can lead to that or not. You can stick with painted canvases and work on them. No problem. The point is always still the same. With needlepoint threads, one thing to remember: the holes in the needlepoint canvas are for one thing only, and that's the place to stick the needle. You never look at them, you never consider them, you don't care about them. That's just where your needle goes. The thing that's important is the threads, and on this paper, it's perforated paper, so you count the spaces, the paper spaces between the holes. Let me give you an example. And for needlepoint, you use tapestry needles. Tapestry needles. Now, okay, let me come down closer. This is getting slow after 600 and almost 700 videos. I think I'm going to have to treat myself to a new one. Okay, so the hole where the needle goes, and the next hole next to it, and next to it you have your paper, and then another hole, and your paper, and another hole. You do not care about the holes. You don't count the holes. They're not important in your stitching. you use the threads between the holes as the objects that you count and what makes your needlepoint design. We're going to be doing some cross stitches today. Everyone can do a cross stitch, there's no difference. And let me show you again on that aqua canvas. Okay, here we have the aqua canvas, and here we have the threads. Okay, so we're starting here. 1, 2, 3 threads over. And I stuck the needle in the holes just so that I could count, as a help of counting. It has nothing, those holes are only there for you to stick the needle. A place to go. You can sometimes stick the needle in the same hole more than once. Absolutely. Needlepoint is wonderful. There's lots of different variations. So, 1 thread, 2 threads, 3 threads, 4 threads. And then you can go up. 1 thread, 2 threads, 3 threads, 4 threads. Okay. So, we're always counting threads. So the things that I have that I'm going to be using are a tapestry needle, and how you measure whether the tapestry needle is going to work is you're going to stick it through the hole. If it goes through backwards and forwards, you know that it's going to work just a treat for you. I have a Mill Hill needle threader. Let me get this over here so that you can see that. I have a Mill Hill needle threader that I find as one ages, one needs to have a needle threader. I didn't need one 10 years ago. I certainly do now. These are various sized tapestry needles. This rather thick one, you can see the difference in size. Let's see if this one will go through. It will go through, but it takes an awful lot of pulling to get it through. And then when there are some threads in the needle, it would make it difficult. So this one would be too thick for the job that we're doing. Put this out of the way. Scissors, needle threader, and some floss. We're ready to go. Okay. Now, I'm going to teach you the correct way to use floss, DMC floss. It's not necessary to do, but when we're doing needlepoint, it certainly does make a difference. So, here's my 37 years of teaching coming out. We need a piece no longer than about 18 inches. Put this away, out of harm's way also. Now, you can put your fingers in the center here, any place, and pull apart your strands. There's no reason not to do that for slow stitching and projects like that. However, the correct way to use this to its best advantage is to hold the thread in your fingers tightly and tease the ends so that you start to see the threads. Pull out one, don't let go. Pull out one, lay it down. Pull out a second one, lay it down. Pull out a third one, I think I'm going to use 3 strands. So here's a third one coming out now, and they're laying down together. And here we have what is left over. And then we put them back together. Now let me explain why we've gone through this little exercise. DMC is such fine quality cotton that if used this way, there we go. If used this way, the separated threads, you can even feel it in your fingers, the separated threads will do what's called railroading. They'll lie like this if you treat them nicely and speak to them nicely and hold your mouth correctly, rather than go through like this, which is nothing wrong with it. It's fine. However, to get the best out of DMC floss and to use its 100% cotton to the best advantage, it can turn out to look like silk, as you saw in some of the pieces in my watercolor frame. Now let's go. Let's thread up. Okay. We're threaded up. Have our tail. And we can go down here to the, there are many ways to make a knot. Very many ways. The old-fashioned way, which required a little saliva, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. No one is going to be, there's no saliva police around. So, we can make our knot any way we choose. I'm going to wet my 2 fingers and show you that the old-fashioned ways are still good, they still work. Here we have our knot. And why not? That was no pun intended. Okay, now let's practice something that we can all do, is cross stitches, but with holes and threads already marked out for you. It makes it so much more fun and easier to do. Let's look now at how we're going to attach this piece of thread to this canvas. It's something called an away knot. So I'm just going to stick this, what is that, 1 inch, 2 inches, about 3 inches away, maybe 4, who knows, into the front of the canvas. And there's the knot. All you're left with is your away knot. It is away from the work that we're going to do up in this corner. I'm going to try to put many different examples of stitches on this piece of paper. So, our away knot. Now, let's practice our cross stitch. And on Needlepoint Canvas, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 threads to the right, and 1, 2, 3, 4 threads up. Let me make sure I've got that right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're coming up in the lower left, we're going down in the upper right, we're coming back down under that one on the same line, so we're coming down 1, 2, 3, 4, and coming up. But it's pretty easy to see thanks to the fact that this is perforated paper. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have our cross. It's a perfect cross. Also, the threads, the DMC threads, have lined themselves up next to each other. They're not all wadded up in there, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having, if you have a big piece of work, no one is going to be looking closely with a huge magnifying glass to see whether or not you have separated your threads for your cotton. Okay, the next one is going to be right next to it in the same hole down here. You're not going to see any of this because it's on the back. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. After a while, you'll get so good at this that you will just drag your needle point across the paper, or you will be able to eyeball where this hole is. It's down directly under the upper right, and now we have lower right, and upper left, of course, is going to go back right in the same hole that this one is, and you'll notice how they are lining themselves up beautifully. Let's just do one more. We don't have to think about this one because it's already there for us. There's the first one, lower left. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is called cheating. Why not? Okay, and this is in the same line of threads, and back up here. Let's do 4, because I want to show you how to use that away knot that we've made. So here, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And down here, and up here, and we're on the back. And this is what we have on the back. Now, we're going to go to this away knot and cut it loose. And we're going to go to the back. We're already back here for this one, so I'm going to just run this needle. I'm going to run them right through like I'm going through a railroad tunnel. And if I'm going to be using, and if I had more thread back here, I could go back again a little bit, but that's really not necessary for our purposes. And now you'll notice you have this away thread, and I'm going to use that to knot off the end of this fabric of this stitch, a set of 4 cross stitches. Going to go right through. And we're going to go right back under these threads. And because I'm overprotective of my stitchery, I'm going to go back under again. Come out. It will slide out. Put my needle on my magnet, and you see the back and the front. Now we're going to do something a little bit different before we get to this one today. I had planned on doing another variation on cross stitching, and this one I am not going to separate them. This is as it comes out of the skein. Okay. Now, for those of you who do this, is another way to do a knot. You hold your needle in your dominant hand, which would be either left or right. You hold the end of the piece of thread between your thumb and pointer. You lay this needle down on top so that you have the tail pinched in your fingers. Wrap a few times. I usually do about 3 times. Hold, 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 hold. Push through, and you have a very neat and pretty knot. We will be doing those over and over again, and we will be using away knots also. Now, let's go to a large knot. I'm going to put a large cross stitch here, so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so instead of counting across 4 threads, we're going to count across 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I lost the count. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you had a magnifying glass, you could see. Now, the reason I was able to find this hole so easily is I noticed that there's one thread between this row and this one, so I just came over here, lined it up with this one, and here we're going to go down this column so we've made a gigantic cross stitch, and there is absolutely no reason why we can't put a cross stitch on top of a cross stitch. So we're going to go from the center down. We're going to find one. I'm going to go over 1 thread, 2 threads, and go up. One thread, 2 threads, and we have another cross coming, you'll notice. Turn this so that you can see it better. and back this way. We just made a little bit of a fancier cross stitch in which we've used two crosses, one that looks like an X and one that looks like a cross. And I think we're going to, oh, why don't we just do something else here? Why don't we go back to the beginning of this one, come up in the same hole. Nothing's going to happen because we've already been in that hole and used it. So let's do a French knot. We've come up in the same hole that we have at the tip of that cross. 1, 2, 3. Back down in the same hole. And we have a cross with a French knot at the end. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm letting these be a little bit loose so that big enough so that you can see them. This one is looser than this one because I want to make absolutely sure that you can see them. And let's go here. Oops, dropped my needle. I'm going to blame that on my neuropathy in my fingertips due to my chemo. You can always find something to blame when you drop your needle. 1, 2, 3. And last one. 1, 2, 3. So we have 4 French knots, one a rather large one. I call them messy French knots because if you really want to see them, you can leave them messy or you can do them the standard way. So we have, now there is no way, no reason on earth that you couldn't come over here and put in a French knot. 1, 2, 3. Another messy one. So, the variations that we can do with French knots to make interesting stitches. Just a cross stitch with a cross over the center and French knots. Now this one, I didn't make an away knot, so I'm going to come to the back. I'm going to come through, going one way, come back over, go through, going another way, and back over again, following another path, and we have needlepoint is nothing more than using perforated paper, and the perforations are the holes, and the holes are just there for the needle to go through. Now, the last thing we're going to do this morning is this version of a cross stitch. It's called a banded cross stitch. It's our typical needle comes up at 1, goes down at 2. If you'll notice, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like these. 1, 2, 3, 4, down in 2, up at 3, the same way we did these, over, down at 4, and then we have 5. We're coming down next to 1, and we're coming up at 5, down at 6, up at 7, down at 8, up at 9, down at 10, up at 11, down at 12, and you have this banded cross stitch. Let's do one of those. With our length of I'm so not used to doing this that I find it difficult to do. So I'm going to do it by removing 2 threads this time, so I have 4 threads in my needle. 1, 2, and I don't want to take your time, so I'm going to use this one and set aside these 2 strands for use later. Thread up, needle in the right hand, thread in the left between the 2 fingers, between thumb and pointer. Put the needle down, hold the end, 1, 2, 3, grab on nice and tightly over, so not so tightly that you can't move the needle, but tightly enough, and down through makes our hole. Okay. Our last project for today is this banded cross stitch. Let's go way down here. Now we need to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, that's just 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do it 8, just so that you can see this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, dropped the needle. Just as I thought I was doing a fast one and counting by just looking at the line, looking at the thread. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. Down, let's go across. We'll come up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we've got a nice big cross here. Now it said up at 1, down at 2. We did that. We came up at 3, and we went down at 4. Now we have to come to 5. Now 5 is right next to 1. It's one thread over. So we're coming up at 5 and going down at 6, which is 1 under 2. Here's 2, here's 6. Now 7 is up from 1. 7 is 1 up from 1. Here's 1 and there's 7. 8 is next to 2. 8 is next to our original, our 2. There's 8. 9 is next to 3. 10 is down 1 from 4. Here's the corner one, 4. Here's 1 under it. That's number 10. Number 3. 11 is 1 up from number 3. And 12 is 1 over from number 4. Here's number 4, our original. And there's 12, 1 over from it. And so we have our banded cross stitch. And as you can see, needlepoint is if you can count, and that you understand the concept that the holes are only there to stick the needle in, the sky's the limit. So we have a banded cross stitch. Over onto the back. Let's run our needle under. And one more just to be safe and sound. So today we have worked on regular cross stitches using a needlepoint paper or perforated paper. We have done a large single cross stitch and a cross on top of that over the center of the cross stitch, and a French knot on the corner of each piece, each point of the cross. And we could have continued around here, and we would have had this lacy, fancy cross stitch. And here we have a banded cross in which we laid a cross over a cross. Let's get closer so that you can see what we have achieved today. Well, I'm back. I had a problem at the end with my camera, and my husband got me out of a deep hole that I was sinking tremendously in. But here I am again to talk about what we have done today. We have found out about Mill Hill perforated paper. If you are interested in learning some of these tricks to using needlepoint on your slow stitching. We practiced regular cross stitches, cross stitch that we made up ourselves using a cross stitch with a cross laid over the top of it, and French knots on the ends of the tips of the threads, and then we practice a banded cross stitch using a diagram. Now, a lot of you look at this diagram and say, I can't do it. Well, you found out that it really was quite simple. This is the yellow one, and the green one is 1, 2, 3, 4, the same as this. And then we had to find 5, which is next to 1, and come down in 6, which is under 2. Up in 7, which is on top of 1, down in 8. Up in 9, down in 10. And we have a banded cross stitch for those of you who might be interested in giving this a try. A lot of the things that I'm going to be getting into with you, we will not be doing it with diagrams. We will just be sharing how to do it with you. I do hope that you have enjoyed today's visit, and if you have, I would hope that you will give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share with a friend, and I would appreciate you joining me on this little odyssey that we're about to take, in which we incorporate some needlepoint stitchery in with our slow stitching. Bye now. See you soon.